and welcome to the Robinhood Capitalists. I'm your host, DJ Flores. With me, of course, my coach, and I know he's yours now. He has to be. If you're watching the show, if you're following us, thank you for all the support and shares and likes and comments, and we do appreciate it. But, Coach, it's getting warm here. How's it down here by you? And how's your weekend? How's everything going?
Yeah, so last weekend was the really busy one, family, everything going on. This weekend was a little more of a typical weekend, laid back, yard work, church, that sort of thing. So nothing too exciting this weekend. How about you? What's going on in your world?
Oh man, we started baseball, so like obviously, so we do have a hard start or hard stop at 4:45, so we will be ending a little bit short today, y'all. But yeah, Coop and Oakley started baseball, so it's so much fun. It's it's I'm sure you know being able to relive through that. Especially me and Maggie both played baseball or softball the most, so it's like I just get back to all the different the core memories. The core memories that are there, they're powerful. So yeah, it's really good. And actually, speaking of that, Coach Phil brought that out. Shout out to Coach Phil for last week, but he brought that out asking me that question. But yeah, it's amazing. So.
He took you back to the baseball field and the emotions of that good day to find your wins. That was good.
That was good. He sure did. And shout out to Coach Phil. Coach, I got to see you and Jeff from Gittimer. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. I didn't, unfortunately, get to watch the entire thing, but man, what a legend. So,
Business Renovator podcast. Check it out.
Yeah, please check it out, please, y'all. And speaking of guests with podcasting, Coach, you're nailing it with these past few guests. So Coach Phil, and now we have, if you could, just give a little plug and a little setup for who our guest is today, and then I'll actually put up that graphic that I was talking about.
Yeah, we have Dwight Dye on today, and I've known Dwight for quite a long time. A very successful business owner in his own right. He comes from the tax and accounting world, but he's taken it up a notch and doing some pretty exciting things, helping people protect their wealth, helping them keep their wealth, helping them grow their wealth. And it's some pretty exciting stuff. So this should be a fun conversation, especially the time of the year. We finally get through tax day, and now we got our tax guy to tell us what we should be doing the other 8 months of the year to get ready for the next time it comes around, I guess.
Agree, Coach. Guys, don't look back at the pain that you just happened. It's over. The pain is done. Well, let's take some notes. Get your books ready. Take some notes. Be prepared so you're prepared for next season. But yeah, I can't wait to kind of hear you guys go into the weeds with that, because I know just from seeing and being part of that with John for a little bit, and hearing the ATAX season in the Batcave and all these things, and it seemed pretty chaotic and stressful at times. So just wild.
So if you're in the business, it's chaotic and stressful. If you are in any other business trying to follow the rules and the regulations, it gets chaotic and stressful. What Dwight can do is help take that stress and chaos away. So that's what we're going to get to hear today.
I love that you said that, Coach. And again, let's plug. So, guys, this was from episode 4. You can find it on YouTube. But Dwight is one of the 3 hosts on this. It's Cheers to Wealth podcast. Amazing podcast. Again, if you have wealth, if you have money that you want to protect, and this world is crazy right now, and you need to protect, don't be sure and check these guys out. It's a pretty good show. But yeah, I can't wait to get this started. So, Coach, you ready?
Yeah, man, let's roll.
You get one heartbeat song. Take it seriously. This is your masterpiece. Don't forget to dream and taste the colors in the air you breathe. It's your masterpiece. Go ahead and feel it all. Don't stop till it is beautiful. Don't stop till it is beautiful.
All right, everybody, and again, welcome to the Robinhood Capitalists. We have our guest, Dwight. Dwight, thank you for joining us, and hopefully Coach did a good job of introing you there.
Yeah, I paid him a little bit extra before the show, so yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, the man, the
Money
myth, the
well spent.
legend. Yeah, this is going to be fun. So I
Yeah, I
know
appreciate it.
some of your backstory here. So I know that kind of the whole tax and accounting thing, you were kind of born into it. So how about tell the rest of the world your story and what kind of got you to where you are now?
Yeah, so it's interesting because back when tax returns were prepared on paper, and you had to calculate everything, that's when my dad was doing tax returns. And I remember people coming to our house to drop off their documents for him to sit there and fill them out. And they would come back within a week or so. It wasn't like it is now where you sit down with somebody and in about an hour, for the less complicated ones, it's finished and you're ready to go. But he was an entrepreneur at spirit, and he would even go set up at the flea markets, and people would bring their tax stuff. Kind of like I kind of equate it now to one of those brands that sit at Walmart, I guess, that we don't want to talk about. And so he would sit at the flea markets, and people would bring their documents there. And this was probably mid '80s. And he still has people that he does their tax returns for to this season. It's
I believe that, and I'm glad you said that because as soon as you mentioned that, it instantly triggered in my head as you were painting that story. It's like, oh my goodness, the relationship back then that you were able to build because of the process, and obviously you're digging in deeper into the weeds and how long. It's no wonder you would have the same person doing your taxes for years and years and years, and now it's kind of who has the best deal, right? For some people.
Well,
Sometimes
it's all about relationship.
My first tax store was one of those kiosks. It wasn't in a Walmart, but I felt attacked by that opening salvo.
I love that your dad was ahead of that to even think of that, though. Especially, I was your dad thinking about flea market. I love flea markets. I love the people at flea markets. They're my kind of people. I love them, and so I love that he went there and thought out of the box. I mean, that's I guess a testament to his. You had a great foundation starting off, which is awesome.
Yeah,
so then what happened?
From the flea market, people would still come to the house, of course, but my parents bought a property in town, and the idea was for them. They had my parents have always had side hustles and business owners in addition to their W-2 jobs. And they at one point owned a custom framing and art type business. And they had a place to do the custom framing, where people could come in and look at the different frames. And so they bought this building to house that. And, it was successful for several years, and life happens and you get busy with other stuff, and you can't concentrate on that. So they ended up closing it down, but they rented it to a guy who owned a tax office. And so he rented it for years, and he had another location in a different state, actually just across the border, where we lived in South Carolina at the time. And my dad says, well, what are you going to do with these clients? Because they could have driven to that other location. It's probably an hour away. But the guy was like, well, I don't know. Do you want them? And my dad said, sure. So he took on, I guess, 200 clients, just handed to him. The guy didn't make him pay any type of fee, for those clients. And then because my dad had a W-2 job, he was about 2 years away from receiving like full retirement, and so I was graduating college. I didn't have a job lined up. And he said, well, you can't just lay on the couch all summer. And so I'm going to teach you how to do taxes. So in the fall, he taught me how to do taxes. So I was ready for the tax season. And so I managed the office for 2 years, not knowing anything about taxes. And of course, I was doing the easy ones. And at night, he would get off of his other job and come over and do the hard ones. And those people dropped off anyway. But he taught me how to do the hard ones. And so that's what prepared me. And, I've witnessed the life that a successful tax office can provide. At the end of the tax, my parents usually have at least a 2 or 3 week trip planned where they just go away and relax, and they travel in the summer, in the fall. So when I had an opportunity, I guess over 10 years ago now, to open my own tax office, I jumped at it. And there's been ups and downs along the way, but I've worked with Stacey over the years too, and so now we have more ups than we do downs. So it's been good.
It's a testament to Coach. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's so much to the tax business that I don't think people realize, and there's so many other, I guess, offshoots may be the word I'm looking for here. But, a lot of our tax folks, they do accounting, they do bookkeeping, they do lots of other things. Your dad is kind of, I think in this day and time, a little bit unique in the fact that he just does just taxes, right? So what do you see maybe as kind of like the future of this entire tax industry?
Well, for me personally, I like the advisory aspects of the tax industry, where we're not actually preparing the tax returns. Unfortunately, I think that's still going to remain a component. But when you pair that with advisory, you're raising your status to a different level. The people are trusting you even more for your advice, the way you're helping them and helping them structure things. Coming up with strategies on how we can plan to keep more money in their pocket. Obviously, the filing deadline was yesterday, and people were wanting to know what they could do yesterday to save money on their 2023 taxes, and that's not the time to start thinking about that. It would have been last year to start thinking about how to save money for 2023. A lot of the tax industry, you mentioned bookkeeping, there's people that do payroll. A lot of that work, that requires work. And I've gotten to the point to where I don't really want to work, like that. I would rather just have a conversation with somebody, look at their tax returns that were prepared and try to advise them on some things that they could do for this year and just, make little shifts to keep more money in their pocket. Let somebody else do the bookkeeping, I'll review it for them.
A lot of folks we've talked to on the show, we talk to a lot of small business owners. And so who's a kind of an ideal client for tax advisory, or who is it out there that really needs to be thinking about it?
Well, you need two things. So you need a large income. And for me, I think that's about $250,000 per year or higher. But you also need liquid capital. So you need some cash on hand, because some of the strategies we use require making an investment. And it amazes me, some of the people making a lot of money that have no cash. They live a great lifestyle. They live in a big fancy house, drive nice cars. I won't talk about the women, but they're living good. But I've got more money in my bank account than they do. And it makes me feel good from that standpoint. But, you've got to have money in order to save money on taxes. So you're going to give that money to somebody. So it's like, well, if you didn't do any planning or strategy, how are you going to pay the taxes? Because you don't have any money in your account to do that. So you've got to have money on hand. For example, like an oil and gas investment, you've got to have the money to make that investment in order to save the money on taxes. So I would much rather make an investment, in something that I still own, because what's your return on your investment when you send it to your business partner, the IRS? Zero.
Yeah, and I've seen you guys working and saving people hundreds of thousands of dollars on the taxes that are owed, and so these strategies are incredible, and they're 100% legal. They're written into the code. It's not like it's anything that's like Trump gets accused of cheating the system, but in reality, he's just following the code of what it says you can and can't do in the taxes. And so when you say you really need the liquid capital, and you mentioned oil and gas, what are some other examples that people are doing for tax savings?
Well, there's a really good one that I like, and I like giving back. I think our podcast last week we talked about different charitable donations you can make, and so there's a charitable finance deduction, and the reason I like it is because when you do the oil and gas, let's say you make $100,000 investment. Well, you can only really deduct about 80 to 90,000 of that against your income. Well, if you do this charitable finance deduction, let's say you can only go up to 60% of your adjusted gross income because it's still a charitable donation. But the good thing about it is you only have to come out of pocket 10% of that donation, but you still get credit for 100% of the donation. So let's say that you want to make a $300,000 donation and you don't have 300,000, but you've got 30,000. Well, you can make a $30,000 donation now, finance the 90%, and there's a life insurance component to it that's the collateral for that 90%. And so you're ultimately donating 300,000. Now, the one downside, just to be clear for the people watching, when you make that donation, there's only about 9 different funds that you can pick from. So it's not like you can say, okay, I want this 300,000 to go to my church. You can't do that. But there's an underwriting process that they go through where they ask you what you believe in, what you want to support, what aligns with your values. So certainly out of one of those 9, there's going to be one that supports the mission that you want to help out. But then on the back end, on the death benefit side of it, when you pass away, at that point, you can direct part of that death benefit to the charity of your choice or your church in that case.
Very interesting.
It's not immediate.
And Coach, I'm glad you went there because I don't know if you'd watched his most recent podcast, but I think it was either the most recent one, this one, or the one most recent. But you guys were talking about this, and another thing you had mentioned of your favorites was real estate. And you shared a story on the podcast about saving like a client $350,000 or something crazy, because of just strategic doing that. If you could explain like that more, I think people are missing the boat on real estate. And obviously, I'm a Robert Kiyosaki guy with cash flow here. So yeah, that's Rich Dad's way. So me and my wife love real estate. But yeah, if you can touch on that a little bit too.
Well, I like real estate myself, and part of what I didn't mention was the way I was able to buy my first tax office was because I flipped a piece of property, and I had the cash from that flip available to buy my first office. So I like real estate too. Anyway, to give you a real life example that happened yesterday, these clients and I started working together October of 23. And they own a real estate brokerage. They're both realtors themselves, husband-wife team. And they had never heard of bonus depreciation. And their CPA, who's been helping them for years, never brought that up, where they could, the rental properties that they had, instead of taking the normal 27.5-year depreciation, they could have bonused, usually about 25% of that into the first year. And because they're involved in real estate, they meet the requirements of a real estate professional where they can deduct that against their active income. And so for 2023, their tax liability was $650,000. So they had made over $2 million in 2022. In 2022, they had made over $2 million. So they had to write a check for $650,000 to the IRS. And so they came to me. We started working together last year, and they already had some properties. They were in the process of putting some new ones in place. They were building a new building for their brokerage. So we had cost segregation studies completed where they break down the components of the building. And those are shorter, depreciation schedules than the overall building. And just that bonus depreciation on their tax return wiped out $450,000 of income for 2023. So, man, I kept going over that return though, just to make sure what I was seeing was correct, because they only owed this year $38,000. And I studied that thing. I studied it from the first page to the last just to see if everything was calculating properly, because I hated to meet with them and tell them the good news and then notice a mistake. But it's right. Everything checked out.
That's amazing.
So, yeah,
that's amazing.
Now, granted, I will admit the income was a little bit lower, than the year before, but still, they, had we not taken that $450,000 deduction, they would have owed a lot more.
Yeah, unbelievable. So we know a lot of CPAs having been in this arena for a while, and you said that they had a CPA that was doing stuff for them. Why does it, and why is it that a tax advisory person like yourself is so important? What are the CPAs missing? What's going on?
I think a lot of the CPAs, they're just caught up. I think I lost you. Are we back? Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
I think a lot of the CPAs and just tax professionals in general, they get so bogged down with preparing tax returns that they don't have any time to, actually step back and look at the bigger picture for that client, or have time to learn, go to conferences, learn about these strategies. Or they think, well, I'm sitting over here doing 1,000 tax returns a year. That's all I need. I really don't need to help save my client's money, because typically by the time the client gets to them to file the return, there is no saving. You're just reporting history as to what happened. Yeah, you had a good year. You owe this now.
Congrats.
Yeah. So, and two, this is more, they're here in Tennessee, but it's a more rural area where these people live. And not to knock that, but the CPA, I just picture him as a 70-year-old, I've been doing this for 50 years now, and this is the way we're going to do it, type person, as opposed to trying to learn the new tricks that have been around.
Getting a second set of eyes on the situation is not a bad advice for business owners. And DJ, let me pop in before you jump in. The example you used, they were already real estate professionals. What about a couple that was in a business? It doesn't even have to be a couple, I guess, but a business that's not real estate related. Can they still utilize the real estate deductions? Can they still get something there if they're not in the business?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do that. The first way is just buy the building where their business is located, because then you can group that building with the business and take advantage of the paper losses that depreciation will yield against their business income. So that would be one option. And now you've got an asset, that's going to appreciate. You're not paying a landlord, making them rich. So that's one option. The second option is, if, depending on the activity level of the other spouse, of one of the spouses, maybe they're not as involved in the business, and then they could turn their attention to real estate. At that point, more than half their time being spent in real estate, 750 hours throughout the year, they would qualify as a real estate professional. The problem I see, though, like this couple's, not for them, but people like them sometimes, is even though they automatically qualify just for their day-to-day job as a real estate professional, is they don't participate in their rentals. So, not only do you have to spend half your time in real estate plus the 750 hours, but you also have to participate. And a lot of these people are so busy running their business that they hire a property manager for the rental part. Well, at that point, you're not participating. And they're like, well, I'm managing the property manager. Like, nah, I don't. Tell that to the IRS and see what they say.
So I guess at that point, you're just limited to typical depreciable assets within that part of your business.
Right. Because it's not an active activity at that point. It's passive.
Right. DJ, hop in. I cut you off a while ago.
Oh, no, you're good. I was actually going sideways with it anyways, but it was just association. Basically, I was going to give you kudos, Dwight, but for sales lingo, what you were explaining of what some tax preparers do versus others, and kind of to answer your question, Coach, I think it's just who cares and who doesn't. And that's more in sales. It's who's a clerk and who's really going to actually dig and ask the questions and really want to know the customer. Are you just performing a task to get so a clerk in sales is just performing a task to give you the money, or you actually care, so you're wanting to learn and know what's going on. So you're just you care, and the rest of these guys, like you're saying, is just getting bogged down into the day-to-day nitty-gritty and just being stuck in the same ways and thinking something might change.
Well, and I used to be like that. And that's why I reached out to Stacey several years ago to plug Stacey here, helping me get out of that, being bogged down and just being worn out. If you'd asked me 3 years ago to come on April 16th and do a podcast, I'd been like, can we do it the next week or the next month? I'd have just been so tired, but I don't feel that tiredness this year because I wasn't really involved. Yesterday was really the only day out of the whole tax season that I was at the office any significant amount of time. There was several weeks this tax season I didn't even go to the office. But when I started working with Stacey, I was probably doing 150, 200 returns a year. In our office at that point, just my one office was only doing about 200 to 250. So I was doing the bulk of them. And I couldn't see straight, by the time the deadline came. But last year I think I prepared 25 returns in this 2023 filing. I meant to look to get the exact numbers because I wanted to give a shout out to Stacey so he would know my improvement. But I probably only did about 8, this year. And I mean, they're friends of mine, people that. I just wanted to help as opposed. One's my next door neighbor. He just brought his stuff over, last Saturday, and I did it for him. So it wasn't anything, major. But yeah, I've come a long way. I've built up a staff that I trust and instilled trust in them, where I can focus on working with the people that I enjoy working, and it's the business owners, it's the people that are providing jobs and income for other people, but they are rewarded from the tax system from that standpoint, but they also deserve a break too, and keep more money in their pocket.
Shut up, Coach. Yes. Awesome. The email, I'm guessing he had you read that book.
That's awesome. I'm kind of thrown off a bit. That was just too cool of a story. I remember how stressed out tax season was. So we focus a lot on the higher income earners and their plight. How about somebody that's a solopreneur? Because there's some minor things, and I shouldn't say minor because they can be major for them at that stage. But there's some easier, simpler things to do, like going from a sole prop to an S corp or kind of moving some things around. At what point should somebody that right now that may be listening as a sole proprietorship or an LLC, at what income should they start to think I might need to switch to some other strategy?
That's a great question.
Since I live in Tennessee, I always forget that some people have to pay a state tax. And, so from a federal standpoint, and don't move here. We've got enough people.
They're all moving there. You guys got to stop bragging about that.
But from a federal standpoint, typically once your business starts netting about 50,000 is kind of like the low threshold. It's worth calculating, whether it makes sense to go to an S corp. But like here in Tennessee, we have a franchise and excise tax, even though we don't have a state income tax. But once you form an LLC, once you have a business, you have to pay 6.5% of your net income. And so, that's one thing to factor in on that S corp. Plus, you've got another return you have to pay to have prepared. So there are some other costs, but typically 50,000 is a good starting point. Once you get to 100,000 net profit, it usually definitely makes sense without doing many calculations at all.
Okay. Oh, that's great advice, man. That's a great question, Coach. Well, if you want, we got about 15 minutes, I think. Yeah, roughly. So, what kind of other questions? Dig deeper with that, Coach, because I like where you're going there, especially with the startups. A lot of our audience is founders, small business startups, so they'd probably do fall under that LLC or sole proprietor. So I guess any other advice would be amazing.
Yeah, well, and maybe let's dig this way. You've gone through the struggles of an entrepreneur, and you kind of grew up in it. What are some lessons that you've learned in growing the business to where it is today?
I wish I would have delegated earlier, or two had somebody delegate to. That would be helpful. I guess you got to have that first, right? So
chicken and egg.
And I remember, I didn't mention this, but for 3 years, I had to work my corporate job before I was able to go to the tax office full time. And so, tax season was really stressful at that point because I was working my day job and then having to go to the tax office at night. I was tight on money. So I would just take the hours, for night. And that way I didn't have any payroll. And just try to be cheap about it. So looking back, I would have tried to make a better investment in some staff. But it was amazing, and from that standpoint, once I went both feet into the office and quit my corporate job, that's when the tax office really exploded in growth. And so in hindsight, I wish I would have left sooner. But when you've got a salary and you get paid every 2 weeks with great benefits, good 401k, great health care, they kind of chain you, and it's hard to leave.
I think Warren Buffett's, maybe not his exact quote, but I think he says a salary is the drug, salary is the drug they give you to chain you from your dreams or something like that, but to keep you from your dreams.
Yeah. So I'd have quit sooner and delegate, try to build that staff up a lot quicker. Because I know, some of my colleagues, they had a miserable tax season, just because they were working every day, open to close. And, you can't run a successful business like that. When you're in the weeds, you can't take a broader view about what's going on and really help from a business ownership standpoint, management standpoint.
Yeah, when Liberty, so we can say that you're part of Liberty Tax, and that's how we got to know each other. But when Liberty started, it started with the purchase of 126 stores in Canada, way back in the a few decades ago now. But one of the owners in that original set of UNR Tax Depot that became Liberty Tax was in Winnipeg, and she was doing pretty good. But at one point, John challenged her and kind of the situation you just described. But he says, you're never going to be able to grow and get this to where you want it to be because you won't let go. You won't let go. You won't let others to lead. You're just too involved. So you're never going to grow. And it wasn't that many years later that she had absolutely taken that challenge, and she was spending a month of her tax season not living in Winnipeg, but living down on the beach in Mexico during season while the stores were just absolutely killing it. And she was able to sell and retire. And She since passed, which is a terrible thing, but she completely changed all because of one challenge that was issued, that you're never going to grow because you won't let go. And that's exactly what you just described.
Mm.
All right, we'll make a note of that. Spend February in Mexico.
In February on the beach in Mexico. Yeah, you got to pick the right spot. You got to pick the right spot.
That's the goal, Dwight. That's the goal. But I guess, what was it that pushed you? Because you said you wish you would have done it sooner. What do you feel like held you back, and what finally pushed you over the edge to? Was it Coach? Tell me it was Coach.
Well, at that point, Coach and I weren't working together. Of course, I knew who he was, just being part of the franchise system. But cool story. I know we're kind of pressed on time, but it's an awesome story about faith. And I usually cry when I tell the story, but I'll try not to. So the first few years of owning that office, because I went to all the meetings where they hype it up and they tell you just the good stuff about it. And then you're like, all right, all I have to do is have one good tax season and I can quit my job that I completely hate. Well, it wasn't like that. And so after like the second year, I had extended a line of credit. I was in debt, ended up having to sell a rental property that I had to get the cash out, to help pay off-season expenses. And I tried to sell it, but I didn't have a sellable business, So about year 3, year 4, I was like, I got to make a decision, either quit, just walk away from it, or, start pressing forward. And so I'll try to keep this short, but my cousin and her husband were having a hard time getting pregnant. And way back, my grandmother's 90th birthday was, I don't know, 2016, I guess. Yes, 2016. And so we had a big party for her, surprise party. And, all cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody was there. And my cousin is a photographer. So she wanted to get a group family picture, which never happens because nobody's ever together. And like I said, she and her husband had been having troubles getting pregnant. Well, she's, setting the camera up on the timer and then running in the picture and, having the picture taken. And then she goes and checks it. And she's like, nobody's smiling. I need everybody to smile. And she said, okay, count of 3. Her name's Shantae. She said, on the count of 3, say Shantae's pregnant. And everybody was like, what did she just say? And so she said, count of 3, say Shantae's pregnant. And so everybody just started, clapping and crying and all kinds of emotions. Well, then she gives a testimony about faithfulness and the way she kept praying for the Lord, if it was meant to be for her to be a mom, that he would bless her with a baby. They had tried all kinds of vitro, they were even going to adopt, but nothing worked. The adoption would have, but they got pregnant before. So she gave a good testimony about faith and how she had started to give up, and just reminded me I had started to give up too. So that night, we're staying at my parents' mountain house in Georgia. And before I went to bed, I said a prayer, and because I'm not very observant. And I asked the Lord, I said, if I am to continue in this business, I need it to be very obvious. You just need to, whatever the sign is, I need it to be very obvious that this is what I'm supposed to do, because I've had it at my corporate job and I'm just ready for something to happen. I felt like I was just stuck in the mud, Well, that next morning, I'm sitting on the sofa with my dad. We're having our coffee, and my dad still has a tax office, and he had started paying me a little bit of my share of the office because my brother now works for him. And so the plan is for my brother to kind of take it over. And so that way my dad was sort of kind of pay me my part. And so my mom walks through and she says, "Hey, have you given Dwight the check?" And it's like, the check? I didn't know what the check was for. And he said, "No, but we need to before he leaves." This was Sunday morning, and we were going to come back home. And so my mom went and got the checkbook and gave me a check. I won't say the amount, but it was enough to where I could quit my corporate job, and the difference from what my wife got paid and what we needed at home to cover the bills gave me 20 months. And I was like, if I can't figure this out in 20 months, then I need to definitely quit. And so that gave me the finances. And my wife and I prayed about it for a couple of weeks, and that was September of 2016. And a couple of weeks later, I went ahead and put in my almost 3-month notice that I would be quitting in December and going in at the tax office. And ever since, since that office, I had 2 more purchased, and now just down to 2. But I haven't missed a meal, as you can't tell, but I have a roof over my head. So very blessed. So just, if you're out there struggling, just remain faithful, and just to ask for discernment, and the path will be provided. You just have to trust and just be open and observant, unlike I am sometimes. So thanks for letting me share that.
That was fantastic.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Coach. It's taking away, wrap up the last couple of minutes, but that was amazing. Seriously. Thank you for sharing that story. Like that, I know there's people that is like, that was huge. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I understand the feeling. So yeah.
No, then the word you use, discernment, I think that's really important. It's one of John Maxwell's 21 qualities of a great leader, is to have a certain discernment. But you combined it with persistence too, and that tends to be a big impotent or a good potent for success when you have persistence. And that was good too. But what a great story, and I really appreciate you sharing. I don't think I've ever heard that story all the way through. So
I couldn't remember if I shared it with you or not.
No, not all the way through that way. We had talked about that you'd gotten the money from your dad, so I knew that part, but I didn't know the lead up to it. So that makes it even better.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that was great. So tell us tell everybody where they can find you, DWD Tax Strategies, and how to get in touch. And man, if anybody's out there watching and you need some help with planning for next year, now's the time to start putting that in place. Don't wait till tax season. Now is the time. So where can they find you? Yeah,
so I have a kind of a landing page, so to speak. It's not really a website. It's dwd.dwightdye, my name, .com. Has more information about me, some client success stories, and you can book a call. And it doesn't cost to talk to me. I'll talk to you and see what you have going on. If you're somebody that I can't help, I'll try to give you some advice and some nuggets where you can, take and hopefully employ. But if it is somebody if you are somebody that we can work together, we can talk about what that would look like. So, ultimately, I believe the money's your money. Well, ultimately, the money came from above, and it's up to us to be good stewards of it, what we've been blessed with. And
Amen.
By giving anything extra to the government for them to spend on things that you don't align with, to waste, to send to other countries, let's work on a plan on how you can keep more of it, because I know that you can do better for your family, for your generational wealth, and your legacy.
Man, that was a great ending right there, DJ. On the podcast, and the podcast one more time, you got Dwight, which everybody you've just met. You see what kind of heart and head he's. You've got a great financial planner that's all about building wealth in Raul, and you've got a good old CPA in Williams. So it's a really good mixture talking about wealth on the podcast. So you guys check that out too.
Yeah, it's every Wednesday at 7:30 Central. 7:30 Central.
Wednesday.
Amen, guys. Wednesday, 7:30, guys. Please go hop over to YouTube and subscribe now. Like and subscribe. Check out the first couple episodes. It's again, what you're sharing the information and where you ended. I have nothing more to add than guys. Take his advice, please. This this it is your money. It's from up there and nowhere else, and it's for you to be good stewards with, like Dwight said. So if you do believe in that, if you believe in faith, if you do want to change your life, if you do feel like you're stuck, again, Coach, I haven't ended the show with this for a little bit, but I think Dwight, since you mentioned about being stuck, if you do have that feeling inside on Sunday nights, oh no, here comes Monday, or Mondays, you're always sick. You're probably not doing what you are supposed to be doing. So listen to that, please. And until next week, Coach.
Feed
Keep
the
it
good
good
Lord.
one.
Yeah.
Keep it good one, y'all. Thanks again, Dwight. This was awesome.
Always on the red eye. This time around, it's not even about getting paid. I'm just an addict for the moment when the magic is made. And when you are who you really are, it can put you through hell. Spend a day in the skin that you wanna live in and see how it feels while the world